So Season 3 has brought a range of new weapon balancing changes as well as several new weapons to the game. So today I thought I'd make a video with the new best set of weapons in the game to help you get more kills, get more streaks, and most importantly get more wins in Warzone. So here are the top 10 meta loadouts for Warzone Season 3. If you want help with other things like the best settings, check out my guide for that, or how to level the battle pass fast or level up weapons to get the attachments for these loadouts if you need. But without further ado, let's get straight into the loadout. So before we go on to the best weapons, I wanted to very quickly give you guys a general class setup in terms of things like the equipment, perks, as this can all be important for the class too. So for the equipment, we've got the stim first of all for the tactical, and this will obviously allow you to heal when you're injured. We've then got the thermite grenade for the lethal, and this is great to lob at enemies to cause damage or act as a deterrent when you want to keep enemies away in sort of crowded situations. And then we've also got the perk package, for which we put on overkill first of all, which allows you to carry 2 primary weapons. This is really important obviously. We've then got double time, which allows you to double the duration of tactical sprint, so you can sprint around the map faster. This is really useful to get to different places if you need, and it also increases the crouch movement speed by 30%, so if you're being a bit more stealthy around enemies, this can be quite useful. The third perk we put on is resupply, which allows you to start with an additional lethal, and it also allows you to recharge equipment over 30 seconds. And then finally we've gone for quick fix, which basically means that killing players or inserting a plate immediately starts health regeneration, and also capturing and holding objectives increases the player's health regeneration rate. So basically the main part for Warzone is killing players or putting in a plate will start health regen, which is really useful when you are getting shot and you want to avoid dying. So that's the general class setup in terms of equipment and perks. Now let's talk about the top 10 meta loadouts, and we're going to go through the attachments and tuning for each one. Obviously there are timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a specific weapon, but starting off with a very strong contender, we've got the TAC 56, which is also known as the SCAR. Now in the Season 3 patch notes, this received, in terms of weapon balancing, a nerf because it had headshot damage decrease, but that's okay. We've still got a very strong set of attachments, and I think this is still going to be a very good weapon. I'm sure you guys will agree. So starting off with the muzzle, we've put on the Harbinger D20, and this acts as a suppressor. It also has several benefits, including improved bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness, but there are some cons, including aim down sight speed. For the tuning, we've gone for plus 0.86 and plus 0.68. Next we've got the 17.5 inch Tundra Pro barrel, and this increases your damage range, hipfire accuracy, and bullet velocity at the cost of reduced aim down sight speed and hipfire recoil control. For the tuning, we've put it as plus 0.35 and plus 0.22. And moving on, we've got the FSS Combat Grip for the rear grip, which will improve your recoil control but reduce your aiming stability. And for the tuning, we've put that as plus 0.52 and minus 0.3. After this, we've got the 60 round magazine, which gives you a larger magazine obviously, but at the cost of reduced movement speed, aim down sight speed, reload quickness, and sprint to fire speed. And finally, for the TAC 56, we've got the FTAC Ripper 56 underbarrel, and what this does is it improves your aiming, idle stability, hipfire accuracy, and recoil stabilization, with a drawback of reduced walking and aim down sight speed. For the tuning, we've put that as plus 0.46 and plus 0.23, and that is everything for the TAC 56. I think it's a very strong assault rifle, can't go wrong with this. We haven't put on an optic, but I think that's okay. The iron sights are very clean and quite nice, but if you guys don't like them, obviously feel free to swap something out for an optic, but I think this should be fine. I don't think you guys will mind too much. I think this is quite a good weapon, very solid loadout all round. Next we've got the PDSW 528, which is basically the P90, and we've put on the following attachments. So we first got the VLK laser 7mW, so this is a very strong laser, and it's good because it increases your aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and sprint to fire speed, so you're more mobile. And the main thing is that you can aim down sight faster to lock onto your target quicker, which is really important. But the laser is visible when you're aiming down sight. It's not too big of a deal though, so I wouldn't worry too much. And for the tuning, we put this as minus 0.32 and minus 32.9. We've then got the hollow extended stock, which improves your aim walking speed but reduces your sprint speed. And for the tuning, we've put this as minus 3.1 and minus 0.54. There's also the TV TACOM for the comb, and this improves the sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed, but there is reduced aiming stability and aim walking speed. And then for the tuning, we've put this as minus 0.27 and minus 0.12. Moving on, we've got the Bruin G305 grip wrap, which basically reduces your flinch, which is really important. So when you're getting shot, your character will take flinch, and this reduces that, so you're able to stay on target better, and you're more likely to win the gunfight with this attachment compared to if you didn't have it. But there is slightly reduced aim walking movement speed, so when you're aiming down sight and moving, it will be slower, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. For the tuning, we put this as minus 0.35 and minus 0.29. And finally, we've got the integrated reflex reflex rail. Now this is quite an interesting and unique attachment because basically what it does, it's got a built-in reflex sight, so it obviously blocks optics, so you can't put one on as well, and so this gives you improved precision sight picture, but it also improves your movement speed as well, so it helps to make the gun a bit lighter and sleeker all round. But this will come at the cost, as obviously, so it does use the optic rail mount, so you can't put an optic on, and also it does slightly worsen the recoil control, but I think this is overall a decent alternative to an optic. And for the tuning, we put this as minus 0.11 and minus 0.26. Alright, next we've got the M4. This is a very solid gun all round, you can't really go wrong with its assault rifle, and for this again we've put on the Harbinger D20 muzzle, which acts as a suppressor, and again it improves your bullet velocity, damage range and recoil smoothness, but the drawbacks are that you have a reduced aim sight speed, aiming stability and aim walking speed. For the tuning, we've put this as plus 0.86 and plus 0.77. This muzzle is very decent to have on most weapons, so you can't really go wrong with it. And we've then for the barrel put on the Hightower 20-inch barrel. Now this will improve your bullet velocity, damage range, recoil control and hip fire accuracy, but the cost of this is that you're going to have reduced aim sight speed, movement speed and hip recoil control. And for the tuning, we've put this as plus 0.19 and plus 0.22. After this, we've got the Aim Op V4 optic, which has precision pictures. It's a decent optic, has got a bit of magnification, but it's not too bulky and doesn't take up too much of the screen. I think it's a decent optic to go for, but obviously you will have a slightly reduced aim sight speed because of this optic. For the tuning, we've put this as minus 1.45, and then as with any optic pretty much, you do want to put it as the furthest eye distance away, so in this case it's minus 1.65. It's always best to have it as far away as you can for the optic. Alright, we've also decided to put on the Sakin ZX grip, and this will improve your recoil control at the cost of reduced aiming stability, and for the tuning we put this as plus 0.52 and plus 0.22. Finally, we've got the 60 round mag, which gives you larger magazine ammo capacity, but again you are slower and you do have those downsides in terms of movement and aim down sight. Next up, we've got another very strong contender, the Vel 46, otherwise known as the MP7, and in this update it did have reduced headshot damage, but again that's okay, you don't necessarily always need to be going for the head, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. For the muzzle, we put on the X10 RR40, which acts as a suppressor, and again it's the same benefits of improved bullet velocity, damage range and recoil smoothness, and there are some downsides in terms of aim down sight and stability. For the tuning, we've set this to plus 1.13 and plus 0.65. Moving on, we've got the VLK laser 7mm again, and again the same benefits in terms of aim down sight, sprint to fire and aiming stability as improvements, but the laser is visible. And for the tuning, we've set this as minus 0.35 and minus 34.55. I'd also recommend putting on the Assault 60 stock, and the pros for this would be improved recoil control, but the cost is that you have reduced aim down sight speed and crouch movement speed. For the tuning, we have set this to minus 2.84 and minus 1.78. I'd also recommend putting on the Schlager Soldier grip, and this improves your sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed, so you're kind of more mobile and better able to get to aim down sight to lock onto that target to kill your enemy faster, but you will have slightly worse recoil as a result. In terms of tuning, I would set this to about minus 0.65 and minus 0.35. Finally, for the magazine, I've decided to go for the 50 round mag, and this gives you larger magazine ammo capacity, but again you are slower and you do reload a little bit slower as well, but that's okay because we've got more ammo, which I think is important for this weapon because you do go through it quite quickly. Alright, next up, one of the best weapons in the game right now is the ISO Hemlock, which is basically kind of inspired from the Remington ACR. In this update, all damage ranges were reduced and also lower torso damage was reduced. So you do ideally want to aim for the upper torso or head if you can, but what attachments would I recommend for this very strong weapon in Warzone right now? Well, first of all, once again, you're going to want to put on the Harbinger D20 muzzle, which is a suppressor. It has the same benefits as we mentioned before, the same downsides as before, and for the tuning, I've set it at about plus 1 or so and plus 0.8, around about that. We've then got the Fielder T50 barrel, which improves the damage range, bullet velocity, hip fire accuracy and recoil control, but you do aim down sight slower, you have worse hip recoil and you are slightly slower. For the tuning, I set this about 0.2 and about 0.25. Now, would I recommend putting on optic? Yes, I would. I would put on the Aim Op V4 optic once again. It's a pretty decent optic, slight magnification, but not too bulky. You get a decent picture with it, but slightly reduced aim down sight speed once again. And how would I tune this? Well, I I recommend minus 2.32, and then once again for the eye position you want to make it as far away as possible, minus 1.65, and you're good to go. We then got the Sakin ZX grip, which improves your recoil control at the cost of aiming stability, and I'd set this at about plus 0.55 and plus 0.26. Finally, we've got the 45 round mag, which gives you more ammo, so you don't have to keep reloading as often, but you are slower and your reload speed is slower too. Alright, so another very strong weapon in the game right now, probably one of the best assault rifles by far, is the Kastov 74U, basically the AK-74U, and these are the attachments you want to put on the weapon. We've first got the VLK Kolos flash hider for the muzzle, which conceals muzzle flash, but you also get recoil steadiness and stabilization. But the downside to this is you have reduced aim down sight speed and aiming stability. For the tuning, I'd set this at about minus 0.61 and plus 0.31. We've then got the FSS OLA V laser, which I'm sure you guys come across quite a lot. It's a very decent laser, and this obviously improves the aim down sight speed, the sprint to fire speed, and the aiming stability. And once again, the laser is visible as a con. For the tuning, I'd set this at minus 0.32 and minus 36.2, around about there. And after this, we've got the Cronin Mini Pro optic, which obviously gives you a decent picture. Once again, I like it. It's a nice, sleek, simple optic, but the downside is that you have reduced aim down sight speed. And for the tuning, I'd set this about minus 2.42 and minus 2.25, which is again the furthest eye position. We've then got the Demo X2 grip, which improves your recoil control at the cost of aiming stability, and I tune this so that it's about minus 0.42 and minus 0.3. And then finally, for the Kastov 74U, we've got the 45 round mag, which again improves the ammo capacity, but you're slower and you reload slower too. Now moving on, we have moved away from the trend of mainly focusing on assault rifles and SMGs. We've this time got an LMG, which I want to mention. So the Sakin MG38 is a very good LMG in the game. It's definitely one of the best, if not the best LMG, and surprisingly it didn't get a nerf at all in this update, whereas some of the other ones like the RAL I think have been, but the Sakin didn't. It's still a very good LMG, so I'd highly recommend it. And these are the attachments you're going to want to put on just to make it really good beefy weapon. So we first of all gone for the Polarfire S muzzle, which acts as a suppressor. You have the same benefits in terms of bullet velocity, damage range and recoil smoothness, but at the cost of reduced aim down sight speed and aiming stability. For the tuning, I set this about plus 0.6 and plus 0.65. We've then got the 20-inch Bruin Silver Series barrel, which again improves the bullet velocity, damage range, recoil control and hipfire accuracy, but you move slower and aim down sight slower. And for the tuning, I would set this at about plus 0.35 and plus 0.25. I'd also recommend putting on the FSS OLE V laser once again, which improves your aim down sight speed, aiming stability and sprint to fire speed, but again the laser will be visible. I don't think that's much of an issue, but it is a con. And for the tuning, I'd set this at about minus 0.3 and minus 31 or so. I would also recommend putting an optic on it, so I've gone for the AIMOT V4, but put on whatever you want. And for the pros, it's got a precision sight picture. For the cons, reduce aim down sight speed. And for the tuning, I set this about minus 1.55 and minus 1.65. Finally, we've got the Bruin G305 grip wrap, which improves the flinch resistance. So it does reduce flinch, which is good. So like when you're getting shot, your character won't flinch as much and you'll be able to stay on target better. But when you're aiming down sight, your walking speed will be slower. I'd set this for tuning at about minus 0.8 and minus 0.3 or so, just around about there. Like I say, it's a very decent LMG. You can't really go wrong with it. Now moving on, we've got the Vaznev 9K, and in this update it did also receive headshot damage decrease as a nerf, but that's okay because we've got a decent set of attachments still for this weapon. So first of all, we've got the Spiral V3.5 flash hider for the muzzle, which conceals muzzle flash and improves recoil steadiness, but you aim down sight slower and have reduced aiming stability. For the tuning, I would set this about minus 0.48 and plus 0.31, something about there. Now once again, for the laser, we're going to go for the FSS OLE V laser, which improves your ADS speed, your aiming stability and your sprint to fire speed, but the laser is visible, and I would tune this so it's about minus 0.32 and minus 31.3, around about there. And next we've gone for the Markiv R7 stock, which improves your crouch movement speed, your sprint speed and your aim down sight speed, but you will have worse recoil, and I'd set this about minus 2.84 and minus 1.94. Alright, we've also got the TrueTac grip, which improves your sprint to fire speed and your aim down sight speed, but you'll have worse recoil control, and I'd tune this at about minus 0.55 and minus 0.17. Finally, we've got the 45 round mag, which improves your ammo capacity, but you are slower and aim down sight slower and reload slower. Now, next up is one I'm sure a lot of you guys will be pleased to see. It is the FJX Imperium sniper. i.e. the intervention. It's finally back in Season 3, it's a great weapon, and you can often get a one-shot kill with it as well, which is really, really good. Now, there are 2 other snipers that do this, but this one is pretty good. So this is the one we've gone for, and the attachments you will want to put on are, first of all, the Nil Sound 90 as the muzzle. It acts as a suppressor, it improves your bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness, but you will aim down sight slower, and your aiming stability will be worse. I tuned this at about minus 1.13 and plus 1 for the muzzle. And moving on, we've got the Fahrenheit 29 inch, which improves your damage range, hipfire accuracy, and bullet velocity, but you will have reduced aim down sight speed and hip recoil control. For the tuning, I'd set this at about minus 0.32 and plus 0.1. Now, once again, I'm sure you guys won't be surprised to see we've got the VLK laser 7mW, which improves your aim down sight and sprint to fire speed and aiming stability, but once again, the laser is visible when you are aiming down sight. For the tuning, I'd set this at minus 0.35 and minus 34.55. I'd also recommend for the intervention putting on the FJX Blast, and what this does is it improves the rechambering speed, i.e. it allows for faster follow-up shots. And so basically when you shoot, there'll be a time when you pull out the bolt and then you'll be able to shoot again, and this can often be painfully slow if you need to get follow-up shots to kill someone. But with this attachment, it allows you faster follow-up shots, so if you miss your shot or if you need to do more damage to the enemy to kill them, doing this will allow you to shoot faster once you've already done your first shot. So it is helpful if you're trying to get a kill, especially at those longer ranges in Warzone. It can be really, really useful. Otherwise, the enemy's more likely to get behind cover or run away or kill you, and then you're not going to get your kill. So this is really useful, but the rechambering accuracy is worse, just to let you guys know. Finally, for the intervention, we've got the .408 explosive ammunition, and basically this gives you an explosive impact, so when it hits them, you will get a little bit of an explosive damage. It also improves the damage range, and it also does more vehicle damage too. All useful things in Warzone, but the downside is that you have reduced bullet velocity and bullet penetration, but that's okay because some of the other attachments we've mentioned have improved the bullet velocity, so it doesn't matter too much. For the tuning, I would set this at about plus 0.7 and plus 9. So that's it for the intervention. It's a solid sniper. I'm sure any of you that like sniping would be very happy with this loadout. And last but not least, we've got the Chimera assault rifle. Now, if you haven't unlocked this assault rifle, I have made a guide on it a while ago, so feel free to check it out if you need help with unlocking it. These are the attachments I would recommend putting on. So first of all, we've got the VLK laser 7mW once again, which improves the aim down sight and sprint to fire speed, as well as the aiming stability. But the laser is visible when you're aiming down sight, and I would set the tuning at about minus 0.35 and minus 11.5. For the optic, I'd put on the Cronen Mini Pro, and this gives you a better clear picture, but you do have reduced aim down sight speed. And what I would do with the optic is tune it so that it's about minus 2.13, and once again the further side position at minus 2.25. We've also got the TRX 56 stock, which improves your aiming stability and recoil control, but you will have reduced aim down sight, aim walking, sprint, and crouch movement speed. And what I would do is I'd tune it at about minus 2.3 and minus 0.85. Now after this, I'd recommend putting on the D37 grip for the rear grip, which improves your recoil control at the cost of reduced aiming stability, and I'd set the tuning at about minus 0.61 and minus 0.32, around about there. And finally, we've got the 45 round magazine, so it gives you more ammo, but you are slower and aim down sight slower, and you also reload slower too. So there you have it. There are the top 10 meta loadouts in Warzone 2 right now. You'll be able to do better in games. Give these loadouts a try. Let me guys know what you think down in the comment section, or if you've got any other loadouts you really like or any changes to these loadouts, feel free to let us know as well. Check out my other season 3 guides like leveling up weapons if you need to level any of these up to put the attachments on them, leveling up the battle pass, unlocking DLC weapons, Warzone settings, all that kind of stuff. Feel free to check it out on my channel. Be sure to leave a like if you found this useful so other people can find these loadouts too, and feel free to subscribe by clicking the bell icon to stay up to date with all my latest Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone videos. But thank you so much for watching, hope you found it useful, and I'll see you guys all on the next one.